Welcome to CHATS TV. I am your host, Samantha Tierra. Now listen, we have a very special guest, and I have to continue to over-enunciate the very. Our guest today, words that can describe her includes perseverance, joy, if I could just name a few words, that is what would describe our guest today. So we have none other than Deanna Dixon. Now, we first interviewed you back in 2015. That was so long ago. I had hair back then. So it is absolutely just a pleasure to be here with you. I know that you've recently celebrated your birthday. You had a single that came out on your birthday. You've done so many things, performing with John Legend, Beyonce, Kanye West, etc. Like so many things. So we've got so much to dig right into, but let's just get right into it. Let's first talk about, your single Healed, and I could go on and on about it, but let's talk about the single, what that single means to you and how that is, kind of come full circle for you.
Okay. Well, thank you, first of all, for all of the acknowledgments. And you're right, since 2015, a lot has changed. I have a whole 6-year-old now that was not here or thought of it in the last interview. My single that I just released, Healed, if I could take one line from the song, "'Cause that little girl still believes." And remembering that belief in self was what inspired me to re-enter into the ring of becoming an artist, being an artist again, and accepting it not begrudgingly, but like with pride, and realizing that this surrender to this gift was going to open so many doors, and it has blown my mind what it looks like when you truly surrender to God, what He'll do for you. So Healed is just evidence that I believe, and evidence that God has been waiting on me.
That is a very powerful word, that God has been waiting on you. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But one thing that I want to talk a little bit about is, you had the opportunity to perform with John Legend. And of course, we'll get to some of the other artists. But let's talk about John Legend. And unfortunately, in the recent, traumatic situations that has happened between Ukraine and Russia. So what was that experience like for you, being able to perform with John Legend?
Well, first of all, John Legend vocally is just incredible, and being around him, and just while we were rehearsing, what we talked about, the peers, that it was like 8 of us that performed behind him, and we was just like, he nails it every single time. Sounds great every single time. So he just set such a high standard for me personally. That performance was so significant. It was significant because it was a tribute to Ukraine, one. It became more significant because they had Ukrainian performers that was a part of it. One was a poet, one was, I'm going to say the name, a harpist, I believe, and then one was a singer. And they shared their stories with us before we went on stage. And when I tell you, it's very important, of course, to connect to what you're singing. And we were singing a song called Free. But once we heard their stories, it was so hard not to be connected to the song and not to be connected to what's going on, because people like me, like the way I protect my peace nowadays, I'm not super engaged with the news. I'm not super engaged with all the stuff on social media. I try to be very deliberate about what I'm digesting. So there are levels to that, what's going on in Ukraine, that was above my head. I didn't even realize the severity until I heard like the personal stories. One young lady was just talking about her family's at the border waiting to get out, and it made that performance just that much more powerful for me, and I was grateful to be in that number behind John Legend on my birthday. I'm like, okay, God, you gonna schedule the Grammys on my birthday? That's what we doing this year? Okay, cool.
Right.
But yeah, so to be singing with purpose always means so much more to me.
Awesome. And you again, you nailed it, to be able to, sing with purpose. Let's scale it back even, weeks before that. Queen B, you had Queen B, Beyonce. We love Beyonce. So you also had the opportunity to perform with Beyonce at the Grammys. Can I just pinch you for a quick second to get a little Beyonce touch and some Deanna touch as well?
Yes.
What was that experience like, being able to have that moment, and what that moment stood for you?
Whew. that moment, I didn't realize at the time that I got the call, because let me tell you the sequence of things. About 2 months ago, I was meditating, and I had been really practicing allowing my mind to be clear so God can speak to me. And so I'm getting messages, and we have a lot of distractions nowadays. So I'm in meditation. I was supposed to be doing 15 minutes. I only made it to 2, but I got a gem that just changed the trajectory and the course of my path, and it was telling me to sing. And so that was 2 months ago. And then I immediately went into action mode. That's what I do as an Aries. I just go and started working on the single. Actually, I started working on a whole EP. So the reason why even being called to do the Beyonce thing was the timing was so like incredible for me. I was super nervous. This was my first music video. Okay. So I was nervous about that. I was also nervous a little bit about being an artist again. And so I was like, what better way to prepare Deanna than to put me in a paid masterclass behind one of the greatest living legends ever. And so it gave me such a level of confidence. I had rescheduled my own personal shoot twice already. Some things was out of my control, but I think the last time it was a fear thing. I was like freaking out. Like, I don't know. I don't have this ready. I was just freaking out. And then watching her direct, be the artist, go back, say what she wanted. She was kind, she was engaging, she was warm, but she was clear on her intentions and on what she wanted. And it gave me so much confidence for my own shoot. I was just like, oh, a lot of times I think we are overly humble, but not clear. We're just like, oh, if you don't mind, can you hand this to me? Oh, if you da-da-da. We're trying to overcompensate for what we've heard about the industry. But nothing about how she was giving information felt rude, felt entitled, even though, although she could. There was a moment where she went mid we were filming. We thought it was like our last take, and she looked back at it and she's like, I don't like my hair. Went, changed the hair. We waited 30 minutes and she's like, and she came back. And so that spoke to me, because I was just like, no matter how it may seem to inconvenience someone or the people you're paying to be there, always make sure that you're satisfied with your art, because it's representing Beyonce. There was nobody else that was going to leave that shoot that was going to be as highly reflected as she was. So, girl, I left the wrap of that shoot and woke up at 5 a.m. the next morning to do mine. And girl, it was like I had my Red Bull, girl. I had my Beyonce Bull. Like, let's go. I know exactly what I want. I know how I want to look. And so I was just like, thanks, God.
Absolutely. And something that you said that really just made me think, when we think about the industry, we think about, artists like Beyonce and those in her caliber, we think diva-like. And so not once did you say that, not once. Beyonce, from what you described, knew exactly what she wanted. And it was a way that she carried out the message without coming out as
graceful.
So
it wasn't snappy. Oh, this is the other thing, girl. I was over there like as a student. I was being a student. She had all of the things that made her feel comfortable. So like there was even points in rehearsal she was getting a foot massage. And it didn't seem like, no, oh, she's up here, we're down there. But she never seemed anxious. Mm-hmm. And so I marveled at that, because a lot of times when I have been presenting or preparing to perform, I'm like frazzled. And I watched how calm she was, and it made me really sit down and put some things together, some resources when I have to perform, so I can be at my highest vibrational self.
Right. And so you talked about meditation a little bit earlier, and I do apologize because I know we're kind of going off script here, but you talked about meditation a little bit earlier. Is that something that you feel like you've now kind of really more incorporated into your calmness before performing, or sort of, going out there becoming Deanna the performer?
So meditation has absolutely been acquired as a tool for me. And it's also taught me that the calibration needs to happen far before you even enter the room, enter the stage. So the process of mentally preparing and meditating and just calming yourself down, now I am more aware that I need to start doing that as soon as I say yes to something, preparing mentally for, because it does, when you are sharing a gift, when you're giving a gift, you're taking something out of you and handing it to everyone in the audience. And in the past, when I would hand out all that stuff to the audience, I would leave depleted. because I didn't replenish, I didn't calibrate, I didn't meditate. And whatever tools I was using would only last me 30 minutes. So, like a shot of tequila, 30 minutes, you're back anxious, you're back all over the place. And so, it's just meditation. And also, there's a teacher that I live by, just changed my life. Abraham Hicks has changed my life because thankfully, fortunately, I've learned, because I grew up in the church, so God created a lot of tools for us. He's like, use me, use this, use that. I am gifting these tools to people to help you navigate life.
Absolutely.
And so I'm not afraid of trying other methods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even more so, one last point I'll say about the meditation thing. You mentioned, before when you would go on stage perform, you would, leave feeling depleted. But personally, I'm sure your personal life, after coming off stage, you were like, now I have to go and deal with XYZ that's going home. And now you're probably more grounded. To your point, you're like, I got this. So let's bring it on.
Yeah. The grounding and the new resources and tools are coming in the right time.
Absolutely. So again, I know we kind of went off course a little bit, but I mean, in a way, it's as if you are just living like this fairy tale life. You have done so many amazing things from the time we first met back in 2015. I've been a fan. I've been following, even still up to this very moment. We talked a little bit off camera about your single, but something even more that you've done. So we talked about John Legend, Beyonce. You've also had the opportunity to perform with Kanye West and, the Sunday service. Let's talk a little bit about how was that?
Yeah, wow. That's such an important chapter that for the last 3 years I haven't really talked about publicly, because a lot of NDA and stuff, things like you couldn't talk about it. It was very under wraps. And so now, 3 years later, I feel the freedom to speak on that experience. That experience afforded me the opportunity to live in Los Angeles and for the first time, full time, be a singer in my entire life. And so there was a lot of gleaning up under Kanye West. He's such a visionary. He recreates himself. He's a genius. He is a genius, and he's a tormented genius at times. But I really like singing behind him and being in Sunday service. It was from my heart. I had a bad experience that happened when I moved from Atlanta, months before I was moving from Atlanta, where I was experienced a major rejection from a church I was leading praise and worship. And they ended up removing me from praise and worship. Because I stood out too much. It was too much attention on me, and it was a lot. It was a lot on my spirit, because this was the first time in maybe 10 years I had sang publicly in a church.
Wow.
And had even become a member of a church. And so to sacrifice my time and become a part of a ministry and like plan my whole life around it, and then to be purged from it, it was super painful. So I had no idea that God had something greater in store for me. So he created the most unconventional way for me to praise him, serve him, and to reconnect back with him after that bad experience. Who would have thought I would be traveling the world singing about God with Kanye West?
Exactly.
Besides nobody.
Exactly.
But that's the type of God that I serve, that, when he shuts a door, he shuts it so well that you'll never walk back into it. And you'll keep moving forward and walk into where he wants you to go. It was like he wanted me to move, but he had to break up some things first to get me out of Atlanta.
Absolutely. And to your point, whenever God speaks and he moves, you've got to listen. You have to do exactly what he says. And the last thing I'll say with Kanye, I know he's very misunderstood, but to your point, he's such a genius. And that's just, I'm a Gemini, just like Kanye. So I get it 100%.
Yeah, I love Geminis, just so you know.
I get it 100%. Like, we are very misunderstood. So I know even with him creatively, I get it. So you mentioned something, and I want to touch on this briefly. So you're an Indianapolis native.
Yes.
I'm an Indianapolis native as well. But you've traveled and you've lived in Atlanta, Los Angeles. Like, what has each of those cities, like being in each of those cities, like what has that experience been like for you professionally, and just the growth that you've experienced?
Indianapolis bore me. Not bore me like that, but we got to find another word. I was born in Indianapolis. I grew up in Atlanta, and then I really started to walk on water in Los Angeles. So it has been piece by piece of building and cultivating something in me to prepare me for this chapter. And so Atlanta was amazing. I still see myself eventually going back there. I thought I would be back there by now, and then stuff started happening. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I guess not yet. Um, but what I loved about Atlanta was a closer commute coming back and forth to home. My
Yeah.
parents liked it a lot more because my brother is there. And I truly created a family out there, a family, because that was my first city away from my hometown. And I spent the most time there. I was there for almost 7 years. And when I say I grew up there, girl, the amount of things that had to break to make me leave Indianapolis was significant. I went through a divorce. My parents went through a divorce. Um, it was a lot. And my parents had almost been married for 30 years. And I'm a daddy and mommy's girl. And every Sunday dinners. So although I was an adult when my parents divorced, it was super hard on me. And it made me try and fight for my marriage even more, but that didn't work out. My marriage ended up ending. So for a long time, and I thank God that my perception has changed, but for a long time, it was hard to come back to Indianapolis. It felt like a graveyard for me because a lot of things that I wanted died here. And so Atlanta was like a safe haven where I was able to recreate myself, heal. That was the first segmentation of healing. I remember I hired a life coach. She is still a part of my life to this day. And she helped me put the pieces back together. And Nina Behan. She is a significant person, and I had a breakdown maybe a year ago, and I had to call her again. And girl, when I say God be moving things around for me, because I met her in Atlanta. She was one of my bank clients, and she told me she was a life coach. Girl, I called her a year ago when things was kind of like breaking up for me. And I was like, I need you. If I have to do a virtual, I'll do virtual. She's like, girl, I live an hour away from you. She's like, give me a few hours. I'm on my way. She drove to my
Wow.
house
Wow.
and helped me put the pieces back together. So when I say God loves me, he sees me, he cares. And whenever I start to doubt and suffer from disbelief because I'm still a human, he moves mountains for me, and he comes to see about me and sends me evidence that he ain't never left. He's never left.
Amen. Amen to that. Something that you said I want to touch on a little bit, and that is the motto, walk on water. Let's talk about that. Let's
That
talk about
is
that.
that is my motto. That is what I live my life by. And me and my mom joke about it because there's some times where I'm like, girl, the boats ain't nowhere near this time. And sometimes we be like, girl, well, your life raft is right there if you need it. So me and my mom, we joke about my walk on water journey. Because if you think about the scriptures where Peter got out the boat and he started to doubt and he started to drown. So even like the joke in it is like, I'm still walking on water, but sometimes it feels good to have a life raft close by just in case I'm being doubtful Debbie. But walking on water for me is my faith declaration. It is what I live by. I have been saying it. I wrote a song about it in 2015. It is the thing that keeps me going because I don't make any of the moves that I have made based off of what I see. It is literally like when I believe something with my whole heart, like I believe in this single that I just released, I have so many beliefs attached to where this is going to go, and it's
Yes.
already happening.
Yes.
But that walk on water thing is like it keeps me believing, and I have been able to get a few people out of the boat with me, people that just are not as big of risk takers, and I've been able to testify and say, listen, I did this and this and that, had no idea. Even my move to Los Angeles, I was moving to Houston, Texas. I had a job offer lined up. I scheduled my start date a week later just so I could go to LA and audition for Sunday Service Choir. My manager that created the job for me in Houston, she pretty much stole me from the job in Atlanta. It's like, girl, you're going to be making $250,000 a year.
Over here.
And I ended up going down to Houston. I moved all my stuff there, drove my car there.
Wow.
And had a meeting with the owner of the company I was going to work with. And I was like telling them my story. I was the most authentic I had ever been. And I remember telling them like, oh, I got an audition. I'm going to go do the audition and I'm excited to start next week. But I'm going to just, while I'm off, I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity. And I had to call my manager after the audition and I said, I have good news and bad news. Good news, the audition went amazing. Bad news, I won't be starting because I know that this is an alignment with me and I'm supposed to be moving here. I had nothing figured out. I didn't know where I was going to live. I had nothing figured out.
Walk on water faith.
Walk on water faith.
Amazing. Deanna, when is the book coming out? Let me just pinch you right. When is the book coming out?
Okay, let's declare it right now because I started on it in 2014 and it's called Life After. So I have some chapters and I'm glad you're asking me that because what was revealed to me was that until I released this song, that some of the other things that I have been waiting on to see the light of day, it had to come in a certain sequence. And music is what has connected people most closely to me than anything else. Like people say I'm inspirational, motivational, but the singing is really the connection. And so the book will be coming out. Let's see, what's today?
Listen, you guys heard it here first,
Today, so this is 2022, and I think I've taken enough time, and there's way more chapters to add to the book now, because Life After is basically saying life after trauma is triumphant. And once you see what's on the other side of that pain, you're going to race through the pain. You're going to be like, God, thank you for this chapter because this is serving something in me. So it'll be coming out within a year.
Okay. Well,
within a year.
We heard it here first on Chats. Hopefully we get an exclusive, we get an exclusive something,
Yes.
Deanna, as always, you're amazing. You're inspirational. As I said at the very beginning, there's not enough words to, describe you, not enough adjectives. And I mean that sincerely. The last question that I will ask is, your single is out. What is next for you? What's coming up next for you? And how can fans, get the single? And let's just talk about what's next.
Okay, so here I am manifesting right now. What is next for me? I have released Healed, my single. I am wanting to complete an entire EP. And I see Healed being in a Disney film. I see Healed earning me my own Oscar and Grammy. And I believe God allowed me to be on those stages this year in preparation for my year next year. That is what I am waiting on. I hear my family starting to walk in. That's what I am claiming. I see it so vividly. I might even be in the Disney film for all I know, but I see Disney all over. Disney, Pixar, all over the book. And also just continuing to travel the world and share healing, share my story, get more people out of the boat, because light illuminates light, and the more light we have out here walking on this earth, then we get to represent God in the greatest way. And so I will offer myself as tribute anytime, because my yes doesn't always feel good to me in the moment. Even now, when I talk about the journey to get here, it's something that I'm so deeply connected to that I have to contain my emotions. But I really believe that this is God ordained. I'm watching this story unfold just like you. Like, I'm hearing you say these things, but I'm very much so still in it. So I got to pinch myself in my head. Is this real, God?
Yes.
And more than anything, I see myself coming back to Indianapolis and giving more back to my community, because I have done all these things in Atlanta and Los Angeles, and I'm ready to get back to my city, and not just for them to watch it afar, but I would like to create something back here as well. So stay tuned for that. Yes. That's still being revealed what it's going to be.
Yes, absolutely. Again, Deanna, thank you so much. As always, it's a pleasure chatting with you. I have goosebumps right now. So, so where can we find you? How can we follow you? Social media, all of that good stuff.
I'm so glad you asked. It is so easy to find me. You just go to DeannaDixon.com, and that's DeannaDixon. And all of my social media links, my link tree can be found in my social media bio. And I'm actually going to re-release my album from 2015 as well, because people have been asking for more music. So you can find everything there, DeannaDixon.com.
All right, you heard it here first.
Climb above the tallest mountain, swim across the deepest overseas, 'cause it's always been inside you, and that's all I've ever seen. Trust me when I say you get to live the spirit.